Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayapataka Swami Maharaj.
The following is a lecture given by His Holiness Jayapataka Swami on September 18, 1984 in New Orleans, Louisiana. The class begins with a reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 12, verse 25 through 28.
Itam mito tatyam ataj nya bhashitam srutva vichinteti amrisha mishayate raksho vididva kila bhuta hrit stita swana nirodhung bhagavan mano dadhe itang mito tatyang atajgyavashitang srutva vichintetya mrisha mishayate raksho vididva khila bhuta hrit stita swanang nirodhung bhagavan mano dadhe. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is situated as Antarjami, the Super Soul in the core of everyone's heart, heard the boys talking among themselves about the artificial python. Unknown to them, it was actually Aghasura, a demon who had appeared as a python. Krishna, knowing this, wanted to forbid his associates to enter the demon's mouth. Translation with repetition. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is situated as Antarjami, the Super Soul, in the core of everyone's heart, heard the boys talking among themselves about the artificial python. Unknown to them, it was actually Aghasura, a demon who had appeared as a python. Krishna, knowing this, wanted to forbid his associates to enter the demon's mouth. No purport. Text 26. Tavat pravishtastva surodharantarang parang nagirnasi savasavatsar pratikshamanena bakariveshanang hatasvakanta smaranena rakshasa. Translation. In the meantime, while Krishna was considering how to stop them, all the cowherd boys entered the mouth of the demon. The demon, however, did not swallow them, for he was thinking of his own relatives who had been killed by Krishna and was just waiting for Krishna to enter his mouth. Translation with repetition. In the meantime, while Krishna was considering how to stop them, all the cowherd boys entered the mouth of the demon. The demon, however, did not swallow them, for he was thinking of his own relatives who had been killed by Krishna and was just waiting for Krishna to enter his mouth. No purport. Text 27. Tan viksha Krishna sakala bhaya pradho yananyanatang swakaradavatchutan dinangscha mrityor jataragnigasan grinardito dhishta kritena vismita. Translation. Krishna saw that all the cowherd boys who did not know anyone but him as their Lord had now gone out of his hand and were helpless, having entered like straws into the fire of the abdomen of Aghasura, who was death personified. It was intolerable for Krishna to be separated from his friends, the cowherd boys. Therefore, as if seeing that this had been arranged by his internal potency, Krishna was momentarily struck with wonder and unsure of what to do. Translation with repetition. Krishna saw that all the cowherd boys who did not know anyone but him as their Lord had now gone out of his hand and were helpless, having entered like straws into the fire of the abdomen of Aghasura, who was death personified. It was intolerable for Krishna to be separated from his friends, the cowherd boys. Therefore, as if seeing this, as if seeing that this had been arranged by his internal potency, Krishna was momentarily struck with wonder and unsure of what to do. Text 28. No purport of 27. Krityam king atrasya kalasya jivanam nava amishang cha satang vihingsanam dvayang khatang syaditi sangvichitya gyatva vishatundam asheshad adadghari krityang kingatrasya khalasya jivanam nava amishang cha satang vihingsanam dvayang khatang syad iti sangvichintya gyatva vishatundam aseshadrighari. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Abhaycharan Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Now, what was to be done? How could both the killing of this demon and the saving of the devotees be performed simultaneously? Krishna, being unlimitedly potent, decided to wait for an intelligent means by which he could simultaneously save the boys and kill the demon. Then he entered the mouth of Aghasura. Repetition. Now, what was to be done? How could both the killing of the demon and the saving of the devotees be performed simultaneously? Krishna, being unlimitedly potent, decided to wait for an intelligent means by which he could simultaneously save the boys and kill the demon. Then he entered the mouth of Aghasura. Purport. Krishna is known as Anantya Virya Sarvagya because everything is known to him. Because he knows everything perfectly well, it was not difficult for him to find a means by which he could save the boys and at the same time kill the demon. Thus he also decided to enter the demon's mouth. Thus in the purport and translation to text 25 to 28 of the Srimad Bhagavatam by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in the matter of the killing of the demon Aghasura. So Krishna is so wonderful that in his transcendental pastimes, through the via media of his internal potency, so many wonderful pastimes are arranged. And Krishna, he's able to play in those pastimes. He plays the part perfectly. He plays the part so perfectly that he himself momentarily gets absorbed in the pastimes. He gets absorbed, therefore when the boys are in danger, for a moment he's also struck with wonder. But of course, Krishna has got unlimited potency, so he can immediately understand exactly what is to be done. But for us it's wonderful that Krishna, who is the all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient, Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he allows himself to play such intimate pastimes with his friends and allows these internal potencies to arrange things so nicely that he himself is able to experience these very personal emotions. So whatever the reason we have any emotion, whether wonder or fear, or whether astonishment, or whether appreciation, or laughter, or love. See, of course, Krishna is known as Abhoya, or he's completely fearless. But whatever feeling we're feeling, you see, in a material life that is degenerated, it's mutated, it's no longer pure. But in Krishna, those different emotions are completely pure. There are different expressions of his love for his devotees. And in his personality, they're never degenerate. They're always Suddha Sattva, or pure transcendental mode of goodness. But this is just that this also disproves the impersonal point where they say that the absolute truth is impersonal, and somehow, almost like the modern scientists, that somehow simply by some accident, by some coincidence, out of this impersonal nothingness, the material creation came. This is not at all possible, neither is it feasible, neither does anyone ever have any experience of something coming from nothing. Something has never come from nothing, and it never will come from nothing. Something is coming from something else. So originally this whole material world is coming as a reflection, as a shadow of the original spiritual world. And we have emotions in material life Because in the spiritual world, emotions are there. But in this material life, emotions are a cause of suffering for us. But in the spiritual world, the emotions are a cause of ecstasy. They're an expression of transcendental love and ecstasy. Just see how wonderful. The devotees of Krishna, they are so fearless that they fearlessly walk into the mouth of a serpent, even after considering that it's a serpent, when they were so fearless, oh, Krishna is there. What can anyone do to us? Because of being eternal associates of Krishna, they're so confident of their relationship with Krishna that they are completely fearless. We shouldn't, as I mentioned yesterday, imitate this and do something whimsical, thinking that Krishna will protect us. But if we act always under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, then we can be very confident that Krishna will always protect us. So, but it's wonderful that these cowherd boys, they were feeling fearless. But when they were inside Agasura, then Yogamaya had created such a scenario for Krishna that even Krishna was momentarily put into wonder, how will I? Of course, that's just also his play. That he puts himself in that very personal position. You see, on his own free will, not that he's forced into it, but he comes to Vrindavan just to have this type of pastime. This is his playground. The difference is that in the spiritual world, there are no demons, just a feeling that demons are there. So the devotees are sometimes apprehensive that a demon will come and disrupt our pastime with Krishna. But no demon can enter into the spiritual world. So here in the material world, this is like a special country resort for Krishna. He comes down here and he can play with real demons. Of course, they're not really demons because they're also his part and parcel jiva atmas who have somehow become rebellious to him. So he's dovetailing them into his pastimes, and by this they achieve liberation and they can return back to the spiritual world. See, just like those in the prison house, sometimes they volunteer to take some medical tests, experimentation, and if they do that, then they can get out pretty fast. But there's some risk, of course, in material life, but there's no risk involved here. Anyway, somehow or another, these demons, even though they're fighting with Krishna, they get let out early, immediately, by being killed by Krishna. But the devotees, their whole situation is completely different. They're not at all inimical to Krishna. The description of devotional service is anya bilashita sunyang jnana karma anabritang anukulena Krishna nusilanang bhaktir uttama. Anukulena Krishna nusilanam. Anukulena means free, means very favorable. Favorably, Krishna anusilanam, one is following Krishna. The devotees, they are following Krishna. They follow the instructions of the spiritual master. They serve Krishna. That is considered to be favorable. But Kamsa, he's also always talking about Krishna. But he's talking about Krishna unfavorably. It says here that when Krishna went into the mouth of the demons became, Kamsa and others became very happy because they're wishing, oh, let Krishna die. Now Krishna is going to be killed. They don't know that Krishna can never die. God is not changing his body like an ordinary demon or human. Rather, his eternal form is eternal. It can never be killed. But these demons, they're thinking, oh, now Krishna will be killed and Agasura will be victorious and we'll have got rid of that splinter in our foot, Krishna, who is always an obstacle for our complete persecution of everyone. He's always standing in our way of our absolute demoniac power. So they want to get rid of Krishna. So they're thinking of Krishna, they're meditating on Krishna. It says that Kamsa, he was sometimes so absorbed in thinking about Krishna, he couldn't sleep at night. Even more intensely than many devotees. In his waking, in his sleeping, he'd just see Krishna everywhere. He was so obsessed in complete fear of Krishna. But his mood was that he wanted to somehow or another kill Krishna. And he was almost being haunted by the thought of Krishna. Because he was so afraid that Krishna was going to come and kill him. So that type of devotional, that type of thought of Krishna is not considered devotional service. Because it's not favorable at all. But because Kamsa was so thoroughly absorbed in Krishna, therefore when he died, when he was finally killed by Krishna, he achieved liberation. But the example is given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that there was another king who was also very offensive to Krishna. But he wasn't fully offensive to Krishna, not like Kamsa. And he was part-time offensive. Sometimes he was engaged in sense gratification, just his normal material activities, and sometimes he was offending Krishna. So as a result, he didn't achieve liberation, he went to hell. He had to accept the reactions of his offensive activity and his bad karma. But Kamsa was so thoroughly absorbed in Krishna that practically all he could do was think about Krishna. Because of his complete absorption, he could achieve liberation. His whole life he was thinking about Krishna killing him, so Krishna finally did do that. But gave him eternal life. So, this is the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We've already read through the succeeding 9. Actually, it's recommended for new devotees to read the first 9 cantos and then read the 10th. Of course, today there are many new devotees here, and they're hearing for the Srimad Bhagavatam fairly for a short period of time, but they're listening to this 10th canto. So the other 9 cantos gradually build up one's understanding of the supreme position of Krishna. Once one realizes the complete absolute position of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how He is creating the material worlds, how He is maintaining them, how He is destroying them, how He's acted with His different devotees in different incarnations, how He's expressed His unlimited potencies and powers, then when you understand Him in His very human-like form of Krishna, where He plays as a little boy, then you can understand that this is just an expression of His unlimited potency. But since He can do anything, He can also play like a little boy with His friends. When His friends are in danger, He can be angry that why my friends are in danger. When He wants to, then He can tap on His unlimited resources and immediately understand what to do. And when He wants, He can just play as if He's a little boy, very simply, very intimately, very lovingly and affectionately with His friends. So, it's understandable when you see that in total instruction and total information about Krishna. Srila Prabhupada mentioned in his Vrindavani Bhajan that unfortunately when the missionaries came to India and they heard bits and pieces about Krishna, they heard that He was a butter thief, they heard that He was stealing butter and feeding to the monkeys, and they heard that He was dancing with the gopis in Ras Leela, and that He was on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and so on. So they sometimes criticize, what type of God are you worshipping? He's a thief. The Prabhupada was saying that they only say such foolish things because all the people in Vrindavan those who are living in Vrindavan, those who are the great, so-called great devotees of Vrindavan, recently the different Babajis and Goswamis and whatnot, because they're not preaching the glories of Krishna. Therefore these padres come, make offenses and go, and nobody understands nobody explains to them rather, what is the actual situation and position of Krishna. That he's not a thief, that anyway, everything belongs to him, so what can he steal? We're thieves. But rather, Krishna is taking the butter from his mother's warehouse to feed to monkeys. These monkeys are great saints who have taken birth as monkeys just to get a little butter from the hand of God. This is His special mercy, but because they have such a poor fund of knowledge, and because nobody is explaining to them, you can't blame them if no one explains to them, how are they going to get the correct information? See, you hear that God is unlimited, omnipotent, then you say that God has come down on this earth, they say, how is it possible? How is it impossible? If God can do anything, why can't He come down? In fact, this one devotee in New York has published different quotes from the Bible. And they're surprising. In one of the prayers, I think Solomon, he was praying that my Lord is forever youthful, that His lotus feet, he has feet, His toenails are just like pearls. And the same description you'll find in the Vedic literatures. But somehow, in St. Peter's, what is it called, the Basilica or something? There, they have a picture of God with a big old beard because they figure He's the oldest, so therefore He must get old and wrinkled. They don't realize that God is the oldest, but He doesn't need a material body which has a built-in obsolescence. Everyone in this country would love to have the perpetual light bulb, the car that never breaks down, except of course for the manufacturers, because it's not good for their cash flow. But all the consumers would love to have something like that. So similarly, everyone wants to have a body which will never grow old, which will always stay youthful, because that's what the eternal spiritual body is. It is a body, it is a form that never changes, that never grows old. It simply remains ever vital, ever youthful. It doesn't require to go through these different transformations which are existent here in this material world. So we should understand this, and very patiently, if somebody wants to hear about Krishna and they're willing to listen, then we can explain. Of course, if they don't really want to hear about Krishna, if we try to explain to them, but they turn a deaf ear, or they immediately start firing off other questions before hearing your replies, then it's indicative that they're not actually interested in knowing anything. They're simply troublemakers. So what is the use of wasting our time arguing? We're willing to discuss, to have an exchange, a communication, to try to convince one another what is the absolute truth. But if somebody is dogmatic, he only wants to speak, he doesn't want to hear, we have no time for such people. You see, we're willing to hear someone's questions and willing to answer the questions, but not willing simply to expend our valuable breaths when someone is not listening. Better even we talk to a tree, because the tree would actually benefit. These pastimes, actually they're very nectarine. When you understand the powerful, absolute position of Krishna, then you realize how gentle and kind and personally He's dealing with His devotees. Then one can see that how merciful Krishna is, how wonderful it is to be a devotee of Krishna. Krishna is not, you see, an impersonal feeling person, but he is very personal, very compassionate, very loving to his devotees. You see, much more than anyone could imagine. Rather, he outdoes all of his devotees, except there's a very strong competition between Radharani and her associates, where Krishna sometimes says that she has defeated him. So, when Radharani and Krishna combine together, when that completely all-compassionate form of Krishna, his spiritual potency, Aladhani Shakti, Radha, again combines with Krishna, that form is known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The all-powerful Krishna combined with his all-compassionate power. It's inconceivable, this combination. So Krishna is the friend of the fallen. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu, the friend of the fallen. So when the friend of the fallen combines with the compassion of Radharani, then you get Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, we see that these demons, they were killed by Krishna and he gave them liberation. It was very compassionate of him. But that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was even more compassionate. Because when Lord Chaitanya, now he didn't kill the demon, he touched their heart with his transcendental mercy. And with his weapon of love, he was able to change their mentality from a demoniac mentality to one of a pure lover of Krishna. In this way, the same killing process is there of killing the demon. But Lord Chaitanya killed the demon without making him change the body. Just that demoniac aspect, that was destroyed. But instead, their pure love for Krishna was revealed. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is known as the most compassionate. Now, to appreciate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord on the spiritual platform, actually when we hear these pastimes, our heart should be melting. But our heart is sometimes so hard that it doesn't melt, because or someone may mentally think, oh, this is very nice. But actually it should touch us in the heart. But our heart becomes hard due to several reasons. Sometimes due to being proud of performing a little austerity, we become hard-hearted. Sometimes due to attachment to sense gratification, we become hard-hearted. Sometimes due to offenses against the devotees of the Lord, we become hard-hearted. So when we hear the Hare Krishna Mahamantra being chanted, when we hear the pastimes of the Lord, where actually our heart should be melting, we should be immediately experiencing full ecstasies. Instead, something less dynamic or less world-shaking happens. That means instead of somebody hears the pastime, hears the holy name, hears the chanting of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's holy name, and his tears don't fill his eyes, his hairs don't stand on end, then his heart must be as hard as a stone. So of course, The devotees find themselves in this hard-hearted condition sometimes. And this is a great worry because in this hard-hearted condition it means that then we are more susceptible to Maya and that our devotional service becomes more dry because somehow or another the juice is not able to penetrate our hard heart. So, process of devotional service is actually to soften the heart. In the Nectar of Devotion it describes that the heart can be described as gold or as butter. As butter or cotton wool, different descriptions are given. Or as ghee. So it says gold, the gold heart is someone who is very grave, very learned, very sattvic in the mode of goodness. But somehow in their aloof position, in their almost proud position, yet they're very poor, pure and grave position, their heart sometimes is also hard. Just like gold. It's somewhat hard. It's a metal. Not as hard as iron or rock, but hard. Pure but hard. So therefore, such people, they have an intellectual appreciation of Krishna. They have some faith in Krishna, but somehow they don't always melt. They are not so enthusiastic in their service to Krishna as someone whose heart is like ghee, where with the slight, or like a cotton, just as the slightest contact with Krishna's glories, immediately the heart starts to flutter. It starts to become melted. And one becomes just like a flow of the Ganges. It just starts to flow his entire mentality and energy towards Krishna. So actually, the process of devotional service is to soften the heart towards Krishna. Why we practice sadhana, regular practice of devotional service, chanting, reading, attending temple programs, hearing the taking prasadam with the devotees. Mayapur Prabhupada, he was very emphatic that everyone should take prasadam together with the devotees. Sometimes devotees like to take their prasadam alone, or separate, or in little units. But Srila Prabhupada was saying that no, this is a purification. Just as Krishna would sit with his cowherd boys in a line, sari sari, and take prasadam. To take prasadam with the devotees, that is very pleasing to Krishna, and that is purifying. It was astonishing to us, you see. It seemed like a very insignificant thing, but Prabhupada was saying, no, it's preferable if everyone takes prasadam together. Or different devotees, they take in groups. Sometimes he had a special system called dawa system, where groups of devotees were taking about 12 at a time, and hot chapatis and hot dal was taken right off the fire. Anyway, that's another. Then, of course, Srila Prabhupada, he always impressed us the importance of coming together to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam from the devotees. Because something is heard, is discussed, even some of the people present, if they are more advanced, they may bring some point at the end of class or ask a question which is illuminating to the others. Plus, the energy when something is discussed with many devotees. Krishna says that There are many places where He's not, but one place where He is where His devotees have assembled together to discuss His glories. So just as you see all during the day, people are gathering together in the coffee shops, in India you'd call it the tea stalls, or in the taverns. People gather together and they start to talk. But here, so the devotees, they gather together, Bhagavata Nitya Sevaya, and they discuss the Bhagavatam. They discuss the glories of Krishna. They discuss the Bhagavad Gita. So this is very pleasing to Krishna. And this is very purifying. This allows one's consciousness to be a little more open, and it's more effective in softening the heart. So sometimes devotees, when they first come, sometimes even they may come and their heart may be very open, very receptive, they're very enthusiastic, and you see that they make very rapid advancement. But then, sometimes due to offending other devotees, due to little jealousies or something which are little subtle mayas. Just like Lord Chaitanya, when he did the Gundicha Marjana, first he swept out all the big leaves and the big branches and stones and things that had fallen in the temple over the year. After cleaning it out, then everyone thought, well, this is very nice. He said, no, now you bring in brooms. We're going to sweep out the dust and the small little broken leaf cracks and everything. So these big branches, and these are like just following the four regulative principles. Avoiding the grossest, mayas. Breaking regulative principles, being violent, things like that. But then the next thing, sweeping. These are the little subtler desires for sense gratification, desires for false prestige, desire for being respected by others, desire for having some position. Somehow when these get frustrated, then one also is put into illusion. One is feeling very bad. Then after that was all swept out, then Lord Chaitanya had him bring in buckets and buckets of water, and they completely washed down the whole Gundicha temple. Then after washing down, it looked completely spotless. It was just sparkling. The Chaitanya Charitamrita said, just like Lord Chaitanya's heart, it was so pure. And still then Lord Chaitanya sat down, and with his little nail, with little twig or something, they were scraping out the cracks. So like that, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada said that we have to cleanse our heart layer after layer after layer after layer until finally we come down to the absolute pure layer. But sometimes we may have a certain layer instead, just like a coal. If you don't continually fan it, then gradually over the charcoal, ashes form. So even though beneath there's a fire, sometimes you see a devotee is already on fire, but then they become little lax, or they become somehow implicated in some kind of subtle weeds or offenses, and then somehow their devotional service slackens. And then a little ash forms over the charcoal, so to speak. So Prabhupada said we have to continually be fanning the fire. Even the association of devotees is such that one way or another it gets fanned. By association, we're encouraged to, come up to the proper standard. That's one thing, is that when Narottam Das Thakur says that we should associate with devotees. Vaishnava, what's that? Vaishnav Seva Charya Che Vaishnav Seva Nistar Paye Chikeva. That who has ever achieved deliverance, who has given up the association and service of the devotees of the Lord. So in one purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada explains the purport when Lord Chaitanya met Rupa and Sanatana and embraced them and told them that they'll no longer should be known as Dabir Kas and Sakir Malik, but that they should be known as Rupa and Sanatana. And there he gave their blessings to them, and he told the other devotees to give their blessings to Rupa and Sanatana so that they can be pure devotees, or they are pure devotees, to give their blessings to them. Immediately Rupa and Sanatana, they were humble, they went and touched the feet of the other devotees. And the other devotees were congratulating them for getting the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained, this is the attitude of a Vaishnava. If he sees that another Vaishnava is getting the mercy of the Lord, he's not envious, he's not jealous, he's rather congratulative. He's rather very happy, he's overjoyed. All glories to you. You've got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They said that the non-Vaishnavas, or someone even in the garb of a Vaishnava who's envious when someone gets the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who's critical unnecessarily, that such a person is not actually a Vaishnava, because a Vaishnava means non-envious, non-jealous. So when Prabhupada said that when it says to associate with the Vaishnavas, that means those who are not envious or jealous, those who are not bitter against their God brothers, but those who are having the quality of a Vaishnava. And if someone gives up the association of those who are envious, rather that is required. Because for a Madhyam Adhikari devotee, it says there are four recommended activities. We should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should befriend the devotees of the Lord. We should be merciful and compassionate upon the innocent. And we should neglect the envious. So Srila Prabhupada said there are many envious and jealous persons in the garb of Vaishnavas in this Krishna consciousness movement, and they should be completely neglected. Now when he said Krishna consciousness movement, he wasn't only meaning the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, but in the broad sense. Anyone who's proclaimed follower of Lord Chaitanya, in the broad sense is a member of the Krishna consciousness movement. But if they can't appreciate the Krishna conscious societies Prabhupada spreading this movement all over the world, then we should neglect such people. It's not that by neglecting them that we are committing any offense. Rather, if they're jealous or envious and they have nothing good to say and we neglect them, this required. How can anyone avoid appreciating the wonderful activities of Srila Prabhupada? You see, if someone is so jealous or envious that they can't appreciate what Prabhupada has done, if there is such a person exists, so we should neglect that person as a Madhyam Adhikari. Similarly, someone who is trying to follow Srila Prabhupada and following Srila Prabhupada is preaching Krishna consciousness. And if that person is in any way successful, rather that should be appreciated. Should not be a source of, shouldn't be received with any kind of envy. If it is, alright, we don't have to also even criticize such people. But neither do we have to associate with people like that. Because we want our heart to be softened. We want our heart to be filled with love for Krishna. If we get distracted by statements from envious people, then our heart will become disturbed. It will become hardened to Krishna. It will have the opposite effect. And that means that a hard heart is more attracted to sense gratification. Because sense gratification is very selfish. And it builds the heart as harder and harder. As a person becomes greedy or selfish, everyone knows he becomes hard-hearted. And as a person becomes more and more God-conscious, his heart becomes more soft, more compassionate. All the good qualities of God become manifest in him. So we have to keep our heart in a very receptive state so that Krishna can reside there, that we can be completely Krishna conscious. And that's why we practice this sadhana. If for nothing else, even if our sadhana is not very good enough to get us back to Godhead on its own, but because Srila Prabhupada has our spiritual master in disciplic succession from Srila Prabhupada has instructed us to do these practices of devotional service. We do to get the mercy of Guru. We perform these activities just to get the mercy of the spiritual master. When you see the devotees who are preaching in the very difficult situations like Eastern Europe or Muslim countries, or sometimes they have to go all alone for a long time, you see when they are very happy to come back and associate with the devotees, because sometimes those who get the association of devotees, they take it for granted. Don't realize that how valuable it is to associate with devotees if they're discussing about Krishna, discussing how to expand our service, if they're actually sincerely trying to serve the spiritual master. Having association with them is so purifying, it's so enlivening. For one to go back to the spiritual world is very simple if one loves those whom Krishna loves. If you want to love Krishna, you should love the loved ones of Krishna. Just as Krishna is shown here in this Agasura Leela, how much he loves his devotees. He actually didn't want to be, even Krishna doesn't want to be separated from his cowherd devotees. Even Krishna didn't want to be alone without his devotees. So then how wonderful are the devotees of the Lord. If even Krishna, of course they are really eternal associates of Krishna. But nonetheless, we can see that how much Krishna loves his devotees. So it's recommended that if you want to see Krishna, first you have to see his devotees. If you want to love Krishna, you love the loved ones of Krishna. If you love Krishna's cows and his calves, his cowherd boys, if you love his holy dham, his devotees, then it's very easy to love Krishna. Because they are with Krishna. If you are with them, then you are with Krishna. When we leave this world, if we think of a devotee of Krishna, if we think of the holy dham of Krishna, if we think of the pastimes of Krishna, or the form of Krishna, or the name of Krishna, then we return back to Krishna. Because they're not different on the absolute platform. How can we think directly of Krishna until we're already on the liberated platform, you see? Then when we have seen Krishna, but rather we're thinking of Krishna's sambandhi, those things which are related to Krishna. If somebody says, I'd like to see you, Krishna, but I don't want to see those smelly cows. Right? I want you without the cows. Well, then you can't go to Golok Vrindavan. Plus the cows aren't smelly anyway. They're scented, they're beautiful. But if someone has some prejudice like that, then you see, he won't be able to go back to Krishna. On the other hand, if someone is very appreciative of all the loved ones to Krishna, then immediately he becomes very intimate with Krishna. Why does it say that if someone lives in the holy dham, even for 6 months, or even for 1 month, or 15 days, or even for 3 nights, that one can achieve liberation, one can achieve elevation to the spiritual world. So if someone is a resident of the holy dham, they become a confidential devotee of the Lord. If one simply remains in favorable devotional service long enough, identifying with the holy dham, identifying with Krishna's service, identifying with Krishna's devotees, one becomes a dham-vasi, he becomes a resident of the dham. He's no longer a citizen of the material world, he's a citizen of the spiritual world. He becomes a confidential devotee. If you live in America long enough, you become an American citizen. You get that right. They think that that association changes your mind enough that now you'll become a loyal American. Well, if you live in the spiritual world long enough, even the extensions of the spiritual world, the temples, the communities, the holy dham in India, when you start to fully identify with Krishna and Krishna's devotees and Krishna's loved ones, when you think that the temple is my home, you think the holy dham is my land, you think that Krishna is my eternal master and his devotees are my only friends, then where else are you going to go when you leave your body? You're going to go home. You're going to go back to Godhead. You're going to be with Krishna. There's no doubt about it. It's a very easy process. But if you think that, the New Orleans, what are they called? The pirates or the saints are my friends, my heroes, and you see, that this material world is my home. You may think, oh, God is my friend, but some kind of distant. Then naturally, if they think that, oh, my only friends are my family members, then it's harder for one to go back to the spiritual world. Because instead of thinking of Krishna, instead of identifying with, you'll be identifying with this material world. One will be implicated in so many karmas. So if you just see what wonderful arrangement Srila Prabhupada has given us to associate with our God brothers and with the Vaisnavas. Sometimes, of course, now we have not only God brothers, we have God nieces and nephews, sons and daughters, uncles, aunties. It's a whole spiritual family. But that was also there in the time of Lord Chaitanya's pastime, just immediately after he disappeared. When you read the pastimes of Narottam Das Thakur, we know that his dear God brother, his equal associate was Srinivas Acharya. Srinivas Acharya was the disciple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Gopal Bhatta Goswami was the disciple of Lord Chaitanya. And similarly, Lokanath, he was the disciple of Lord Chaitanya for all practical purposes. And Bhugarva. Lokanath was the master of Narottam. So in that sense, by level, they were God brothers, cousin brothers, whatever, but one united family, equal. And the disciple of Srinivas Acharya happened to be Ramachandra Kaviraj. So Ramchandra Kaviraj was also a very great preacher. Somehow, although they were nephew, you can say, in that sense. Now, Srinivas and Narottam were very great friends, great godbrother, but somehow Narottam would always respect Srinivas. But Srinivas treated Narottam just as an equal. But somehow, Ramchandra was helping Narottam, and Narottam became so affectionate, so kind with Ramchandra, that actually he appreciated his association. That even in his song we sing, Ramachandra Shangamange, that I always like the association, I'm anxious for the association of Ramchandra. But actually he was, in one sense, his god nephew, and he was a junior devotee by external value, but still he had a very close relationship with him. He appreciated his association. Obviously, Ramchandra Kaviraj was a very advanced Vaisnava, in spite of taking initiation later from Srinivasa Acharya. So that way we can see that there was, the boundaries were not very rigid. There wasn't any saffron walls or any iron curtains or anything. But it was a very loving relationship, a very intimate relationship. In fact, it was so nectar to read sometimes how, in this one book that I'm just studying now, it's called the Narottam Bilas. It's important for finding out all about the history of Narottam Thakur and the holy places that Prabhupada wanted me to preserve. One day, Bir Chandra, the son of Nityananda, without any information, he just suddenly came to the house of Srinivasa Acharya. The Srinivasa Acharya was actually initially a very fixed up brahmachari. But Narahari Thakur had ordered him that he should get married, because there was some reason which he wouldn't say why, but he should get married, and as a married householder he should practice Krishna consciousness. So Srinivasa Acharya would spend about 6 months to 7 months out preaching, and 4 or 5 months at home, maybe maximum 6 months. From all the preaching he did, that's just my estimation. And he later became the guru of the king, Birambira Bikram, the king of Vishnupur. And as a sannyasi, he could never have been a Rajguru. You had to be a Grihastha to be a Rajguru. A sannyasi can't participate in the court according to the ancient traditions, anyway, at those times, which was still practiced. So anyway, he was there, Srinivasa Acharya. He had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. And with his Sahadarminis, he was there. And suddenly Bir Chandra came with his whole kirtan party. And they were overjoyed. Immediately they received him. They gave him elevated seat. They washed his lotus feet. Then they brought their different relatives and devotees, and he gave them his mercy. They fed him a fantastic feast of prasadam. Just so happy that suddenly the Vaishnavas had come to their house. Just suddenly, without any warning or anything. It was spontaneous. Then again, Bir Chandra went off towards Narottam's place. I didn't read that far yet. What happened when he met with Narottam? It was a very simple pastime. Not a very philosophical work. It's like historical treatise. But just how the Vaishnavas were receiving each other, how they were associating, is so wonderful. So of course, I am always very hopeful that here in ISKCON, we'll be able to preserve that original mood of Lord Chaitanya's movement, where the Vaishnavas, they'll come, always be very well received, feel very much a part of our family. And of course, we hope that always the non-envious Vaishnavas, the pure devotees who are simply dedicated to spreading the holy name and glory around, that they'll always come and benedict us. We hope that we don't have to encounter those persons who are in the dress of Vaishnavas but have got some bitterness in their heart and they want to criticize others unconstructively. Let's see. You don't want to associate with those people because we see that our previous acharyas like Raghunath Das Goswami, whenever he heard any criticism of Vaishnava, he ran away. He didn't want to hear that. So we can understand that our life is very short. We want to, in this lifetime, become so thoroughly in love with Krishna. We want to become so thoroughly addicted to associating with Krishna's devotees, to eating Krishna prasadam, to dancing in Krishna's kirtan, to reading and hearing the classes about Krishna, and to telling other people about Krishna, and to serving and building projects for Krishna, and doing service for Krishna. We want to become so thoroughly absorbed in that transcendental association that we thoroughly can identify with Krishna and be accepted by Krishna in His eternal circle of devotees. Especially, we want to be accepted by Srila Prabhupada as His eternal family member, that we can continue to associate with Him wherever He is eternally, knowing that, whenever we are with Him, we can immediately feel His transcendental presence, the presence of Krishna and Vrindavan, Mayapur Dham. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaj ki. Doesn't have to be a devotee that comes as a demon. That's mentioned in the purport. Just because Jai Vijay came as demons to fight with Krishna, doesn't mean that every time a devotee has to fall down from the spiritual world to become a demon to fight with Krishna. Krishna also delivers souls that were in the material world. Yes? It says that one shouldn't preach to the faithless. In India, there are many life members who are complete Mayavadis. No matter as much as you tell them about the personality of Godhead, their brain has been thoroughly, like a computer has got a translator in it or something. Their brain, everything they see gets converted into impersonalism. So, talking with those people, after a while, it becomes like a pointless effort. So Srila Prabhupada said that if a person is really thoroughly polluted by Mayavadism, that better is just to engage them in some form of service. Either in buying a book or becoming a life member or doing some service. In fact, I personally know one life member was a very nice person, but he was so thoroughly polluted. Even when I read from the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano Pratishtaham, I am the foundation of the impersonal Brahman. He just was stunned. 2 days later I came to see him. He said, I called up my Mayavadi friend in the university and he told me that no, it's not that Brahman, it's the four-headed Brahman. No, the context, I mean, it's just like this. But we engage him in service. Actually, he helped us in many ways to secure. He was very good server. He had a good service attitude. He'd come and serve in many ways. Especially, he was a very influential person, so he helped us with the government, with the municipality, with some other people who were envious against us. He would defend us. But when he saw Krishna, he didn't see Krishna the way we did. That was the only thing. He was polluted by this impersonal idea. But even he, by associating and by chanting, eventually you could see that his heart was being changed. And in the end he started to appreciate, because we had continually engaged him in service. So Prabhupada said that at least try it if you can. If they're so much prejudiced against the personality of Godhead, either by materialism, or he specifically said impersonalism, but I would extend that even to someone who is very materialistic. If they could be engaged in service, materialism is even less dangerous than Mayavadi. Even by just slipping them a little prasadam, or by, if they come, have them come during a festival and give out food to the poor or something, whatever they can relate with, you see. If they do some service, that will start to purify their heart. Doing something practical. Sometimes the philosophical can only be received by those who have got some spiritual asset. So the children, they can give spiritual assets to their parents by giving them some prasadam, by engaging them in some service, by sometimes giving those books which are very indirect type of preaching, very gradual. If you try to push something on one too fast, that they tend to become very defensive, especially in the West, where people have a lot of value identity problems, and they want to protect their own. You see, when they see the whole devotional situation, immediately if they have to accept even that this is a viable alternative, then it brings all their own values into question, and they're not mature enough or don't have enough understanding yet to know how. They're just seeing some external things without knowing what it all means. So they tend to become afraid. Because in their heart sometimes even they feel that there's something real here, but this is so far out. If this is real, then where am I? Right? My little brother, he came to visit me when I was first living in Montreal. He stayed for a month or two. At the end of he said that I have to immediately go back home. I said, why? You were supposed to stay another month. He said that the food is so good, and now I'm chanting and I'm starting to like it, that if I stay here any longer, then I won't be able to, I'll be put in a very great difficulty when I go back home. They won't be able to provide vegetarian food. He had because he was still completely in the material identity. His reference was completely material. He was seeing that if I get too much attracted to Krishna consciousness, then somehow it's going to be very incompatible for my material life.